many examples and case studies. And in fact, I have also full presentations that are full complex courses in these subjects, which I share the materials with my delegates, my students, you, I share. If you want an electronic copy of everything I'm sharing with you, the way I share it these days is via Dropbox technology, Dropbox. And the easy thing for me to do is during the break, or at lunch, or at the end of the day, to put a little text notepad file on my computer, and if you just type your email address in there, bam, I will send the link to the Dropbox to you. So you don't all have to put in the link, but if you want an electronic copy, that's the easiest way to do it. I guarantee you that the data will be there for at least 6 weeks. Not forever, but for 6 weeks. It will change because I'm all over the world, I'm teaching, I'm doing different things, and the material in the Dropbox, I adapt it to what people ask about. So if you, after this class, want copies of the examples I showed you, please copy the Dropbox files to your personal files. And otherwise it might change. And I had some people that just recently, this summer, it was in August, I was teaching, and then recently we changed the Dropbox, and they forgot that I said it would expire in 6 weeks. I was able to recover the files they needed, but it took a lot of trouble. So I prefer you look at it over the next few days. Plus, I don't know what's going to be in there. It'll depend on your questions. I know that in Malaysia, which I love coming here all the time, I love the community, but people are very quiet sometimes. This is for many good reasons. I respect that. However, if you don't ask questions, maybe the class is going to go faster, but I won't have a chance to share with you examples that I think might be important to you. I have no way to know what's in all of your different experience or all of your different things. So if you sort of, while I'm talking, don't be afraid to say, hey Rob, what about this, what about that? I will be happy to work it in, and I will usually answer a question not by telling you what you should do, but by telling you what I did do. And then I will, as much as I can, show you electronic examples from projects, from real projects that we did. Sanitized, usually to protect the innocents, but very, very real. And this is more fun for me than giving you a spreadsheet that said, here's a way to do a metric program. I prefer to answer your questions with examples, with experience, maybe a discussion, because my experience and your experience, I hope, is different, and maybe that difference will lead us to having an interesting discussion in the group. So I know there's a politeness, right? People can very polite, don't want to interrupt me and all that. That's very cool. But if you do ask questions, if you do interrupt me, we're going to have probably a more fun, more rich experience today. If I just go through the slides, I can be done very fast. It's very quick. So my personal, so my name is Rob Sabra. You saw, I think I left business cards, so that's my email. I'm from Montreal, Canada. Montreal, Canada is usually a very cold place, but today in Montreal, it is as hot and humid as KL. So my wife tells me it's crazy hot. It's crazy hot. It's so hot that my son was supposed to go fishing on the river, and they canceled it because it was too hot on the water. And usually the water is the coolest place to go. So they're having incredibly hot weather. But in Montreal, it's fun. We measure a lot, and we measure, the most thing we measure is weather. We measure temperature, and we measure interesting things about temperature. Every February, we're very concerned about the temperature. The temperature in February gets to sometimes as low as negative 30, 35 Celsius. Negative. Negative. Not positive, negative. And we will have sometimes one day where the temperature is negative 5, and the next day it's negative 35. We have a variation of 30 degrees. And that is crazy when you're, it's all below zero, it's all very cold. But variations like that cause you to dress wrong, wear the wrong clothes, wear the wrong scarf. And you can get sick, very, very sick for huge variations. But we're famous for huge variations in short amounts of time with extreme cold. So we love visiting places like KL, which are extreme weather, but the other way. It's extreme hot. It's not extreme hot. It's actually reasonable. Extreme hot. If you've ever been to Riyadh? Riyadh. I've been in Riyadh, 55 degrees Celsius, 7 days in a row. Or Phoenix, Arizona, 55 degrees Celsius and more. Recently, I was there they use Fahrenheit in Phoenix. I was there just a couple of weeks ago, and it was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very, very hot. And they were saying how cold it was. Because the day before, it was 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was 10-degree drop. They were happy, and I was like dying. But they're not like the KL because it's dry. It's dry. And it's funny because when when it's dry, you don't feel the same as when it's humid. And here, it's crazy humid. It's like, did you see yesterday? Like all of a sudden, boom, rain everywhere. What's going on? What did I do? You understand what I did yesterday, right? So I'm come here, I'm in the hotel, I was teaching in the room next door on that side, and I bring my little bag. This is my little kit, you know? My Rob Sabre, I'm doing a course, I have my little kit here, you know? And in my kit, you know, I've got some business cards, and I've got power adapters, and I've got and wires, connectors, and look what I have. Right? I have this my kit, my umbrella. I bring my umbrella. I know Malaysia. I bring my umbrella. You know? And so I put it in my bag. So I finished my course yesterday. I finished a nice group, you know. We had a nice time. It was done. I finished my course. So what do? I take my bag and I go to my hotel across the street and I put the bag in the hotel. Then I come back here because I have a meeting at 6:30. And now my umbrella's across the street. And boom! The rain comes. And I only have to walk. I only have to walk 100 meters. But it's 100 meters in a torrential. What is it? What do you call these crazy rainstorms? Is there a name for that type of rainstorm? It's just a rainstorm. That's normal. Yeah, it's normal. It's a normal rainstorm. So I basically, I got wet. It's my luck. It's my luck. But I love to talk about weather. We talk a lot about weather in Montreal. And when we're talking about weather, we're talking about measurement and metrics. That's all we're doing. We're talking measurement and metrics. And you'll notice that the temperature in Riyadh and the temperature in Phoenix and the temperature in Montreal and the temperature in Malaysia is all something that we can easily measure. And we have many methods to measure it, and we can easily measure it. Plus, we can measure the humidity. And we can measure it, and we can easily measure it. We have tools, we have well-known tools. We have thermometers, measure temperature. We have standardized scales. A degree centigrade in Phoenix is a degree centigrade in Riyadh, is a degree centigrade in Kuala Lumpur. It's universal, it's well understood. Even if you do Fahrenheit, it's well understood. It's stupid, but it's well understood. And we also have hygrometers. So we can tell humidity, we can measure percentage humidity, and that's well understood across the world. So we can understand temperature relative to humidity in different places, and we can even understand the social aspects of it, because we can say, well, in Montreal, what they're concerned with is big variations of temperature when it's very cold. And in Malaysia, they're concerned with very big variations in humidity when it's very hot. We're talking about the same thing, but you guys are watching the hygrometer and we're watching the thermometer. We have actually, it's dry, almost 0% humidity when it's that cold. It's almost zero all the time. So if we had high humidity and very cold, it wouldn't make sense. We would say, wow, that's bizarre, the world is going to end. It's not possible. So we even can look at our metrics in weather and see if something is unreasonable. Just by looking at it, we know it's wrong. We know there's something incorrect about the weather. Now, unfortunately, in software engineering, we don't have that. So we don't have standardized units of measure. Think about this. Software testing. The first book of software testing was written by Glenford Mayers in 1979. Glenford Mayers, 1979. And since then, there's been millions of people practicing software testing all over the world, but we still do not have a standardized unit of measure for almost anything you can imagine. Anything you can imagine. So we have serious problems in our industry because of that. We do not have a standard temperature, we do not have a standard humidity, we do not have a standard barometric pressure, we have none of that stuff in software engineering. Because of that, I'm not saying to give up on measures and metrics. Don't give up, don't worry, it's not that bad. But it's very hard for us to use our measures as metrics. Because metrics are comparative measures. Metrics are measures when we're going to compare what this project is versus what that project is. What this product is versus what that product is. What this release is versus what the next release is. So we're always comparing things. And because we don't have standardized things that we're counting and measuring, how do we compare? How do we compare? And it's very challenging to do that. So when you're looking at it, if you're looking for truth, you have to read the Quran, you have to read the Bible, you have to study God and theology. There is no truth in software metrics. There is no truth. Okay, be careful. It's very relative, it's very subjective, it's very unreasonable, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's sometimes mind-blowing, like it's really going to freak you out sometimes when you look carefully at what you're measuring in software. And it's definitely not predictive. So we cannot predict things, not yet. But we can measure things, and by studying it and using it, that gives us extra information, and that information helps make decisions. It helps guide decisions. It helps. It's one factor. But if you try to find a magic method, and when you're counting these things, think very carefully of the following question. This is the question. What question am I answering with this? What question am I answering with this? How can this be misinterpreted? How can this be misinterpreted? When I present this information, what context factors should I include with it? Are there business factors, technical factors, organizational factors, cultural factors that I should include with it? Many people will see the same number and interpret it very differently. So I want three perspectives and business, technology, organization, cultural factors. That helps. But it's not truth, but at least it helps. And don't forget, when you're reporting something, like I said, what question are we answering? I'm giving information to you because you care. My manager cares about the quality of the product. My finance department cares about the efficiency of our engineering work. My customer support team cares about the responsiveness of the engineering team to fix field-reported problems. Those are good things. Those are good questions. And now your information is going to help answer those questions, so you can then give context with it. You can say, okay, this number is showing that it's taking us an average of 6 hours to fix bugs that we're finding in the field, in system testing. In our experience, then, it's going to take at least that much time after the product is released. Is that too long? Then we have to do something to make it more efficient. It's information. It helps people answer a question. So that's part of Hetzel's thing. What is hard to know is, are they right? And what they mean. So what they mean, what question, what they write, have different perspectives. A software measurement is described as a quantified observation about something. What is quantified? It means we're putting a number on it. One of the hardest things in software engineering is to try to quantify quality. Some people says it can't be done. I don't know. But quantifying quality is hard. quantifying management process is relatively easy. Ever hear of lean manufacturing or lean development? Lean development is all about quantifying everything and minimizing inventories and stuff like that. There's quantification everywhere. What I want to do is I want to say, what are we measuring? Is it part of the process? So how we develop software? Is it part of the product? Is it a failing or a success of the product? Or is it part of the project? Are we fulfilling our business goals of the project? And so we're measuring all three things, and we're turning it into some sort of number, quantifying. So that's what software measurement is. And a software metric, oh, not, yeah, okay, I'll get to metrics in a second. Philosophy, a little philosophy here. So Lord Kelvin said to measure is to know. To measure is to know. So if you can't measure it, you cannot improve it. Now, I don't know if this is true, but there's a lot of people believe this. People who go to Harvard Management School and they study management, they tell you if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Now, I don't know if that's true. I've managed a lot of things that I don't know how to measure, or I thought I knew how to measure, but I really didn't. So I think that you have to have a sense of, are we achieving our goals? And that might be measuring. Sometimes it's not, but it's certainly, if you care about the team's ability to respond, you might say we're a very productive team because we respond very efficiently, even though we don't ever finish something. And that might be something almost impossible to measure. How do you measure your responsiveness? And you can think for hours and hours about a way to measure that. But as a manager, you might know it because you have indirect things. So some of the measures we have are direct measures. Some are indirect measures. Some are indirect measures. If you're looking at your system CPU, you might try to say, am I using the CPU efficiently? Well, the direct way to measure it is to look at your code to see how it's using the CPU, but the indirect measurement is to look at how much CPU is not being used by your program, and then assume the rest is being used by your program. And that's what everybody does. They actually look at Task Manager or perfmon, and they look at the percent of CPU not used. So that doesn't tell you anything about what your code is doing. It tells you what your code is not doing. Indirect measures. So sometimes you have indirect measures. If you look at, for example, non-functional attributes of a system, there's a lot of indirect ways to measure things. So if you are concerned about usability of a system, you might look at feedback on forums about the product, and if there's no negative feedback on the forum, that might say your quality is very good, but it's very indirect. You're saying we'd expect a negative if it was bad. We don't see any negative, therefore we might infer it's good, or we can infer our customers are so upset that they're not even putting bad feedback. I don't know about that, but it's indirect. The more you understand what's wrong with the figure, the more valuable the figure becomes. This is cool. So this is the notion of Kelvin saying, what's wrong with this number? So you take your measure, and you say, why is test case counting bad? Why is it wrong? Think of every way that test case counting is stupid, and it doesn't make sense. And look at it. And if you can identify 5 or 10 reasons why test case counting is silly, maybe you should start using test case counting. Because now you sort of understand what's wrong with it, and you can be skeptical of it, and you're not going to make all your decisions based on counting test cases. You'll treat it as something which is a questionable statistic that might have some value for part of the project, but not a truth for everybody. So that's Kelvin. I said we'd take a break around now. I don't know if this is the right time. So, what is it, 20 minutes? Would that be good? Let's take 20 minutes. So start up again at about 10 past 11. Is that reasonable? Okay. Have a coffee, stretch, and I'll wait till you come back.